we're going to have a series of workshops having to do with data science and the tools of data science. And these are tools that can be used for general purpose programming, to solve general problems, to take on any sort of a project. And a little bit later on today, just a little bit, we're going to be talking about how to use Git and GitHub together to plan out team projects or complex projects. The tools we're going to be talking about today are going to be useful for both. I'd like to take a quick moment to introduce some of the DSI staff. So we have our senior data scientist, Dr. Sharo Bell. And we also have, and Sharo is Umang. I don't think Umang is here for this one. Is that right? Well, we have Umang China.
Here.
Yes. Yay, there he is, right. Umang, our data scientist, will be joining us in the middle of the summer. And also we have our full-time intern over the summer, Preston Abrams. So we'd all like to welcome you. So I'd like to also point out that we are available. We're available for consults. So if you're interested in talking about data science project, or careers in data science, anything along those lines, know that you can reach out to us for consultations. And Preston, I'll ask you to share this in the chat in a little bit. But know that we're here to answer questions and to have conversations around data science as well. So, and those of you who came in a little bit later, do take a moment and change your screen name, if you would, to the group that you're associated with. We're going to be doing breakout rooms, and I'd like to be able to break out the rooms according to the group that you're in, so we can sort of keep folks together. And you can chat with, send a chat to Preston if you have any questions about that. You can do a direct chat to him, and he can help you out as needed. So any questions about naming yourself, renaming yourself, so we know what group you're in? All right. So today, we're going to start by talking about what makes projects hard. So I'm going to ask you to actually contribute to a document, and I'm going to share that link with you in the chat. And so what I'm going to ask you is to answer the question, what makes projects hard? Just list it out. I put some examples in there, but I'd like for you to put other examples, just type other examples. Then we're going to be talking about some traditional approaches to managing projects. We're just going to go over this briefly, but in business and in other places, there are already approaches to managing projects. They're good things to know, because that's often how projects get done in business. But what we've found out is that they don't work exactly the same way when you're trying to do data science or analytics projects. So then I'm going to be introducing a data science-centric approach. And then we're going to be taking a look at actual projects that we have underway, so you can get a good sense of what it means to use these. We're going to be showing you Git, and we're going to be showing you GitHub and GitHub projects and what it looks like to track projects, and what a really well-run project looks like. What are the hallmarks of the qualities of a good data science project? And then at the very end, we're going to go back and we're going to take a look at the things that you listed that made projects hard. And we're going to see how well these tools might do in answering those questions. This is not a cure-all. This is not going to solve all the problems that you have with complex or team projects, but I'm hoping that you'll find parts of what we talk about useful, and we'll be able to check off as many of those boxes as possible. Any questions before we begin to dive in? All right. Then let me go ahead and share in the chat this document. And come on, you. There we go. So I'm going to stop that share. And here's the document that I'd like for you to take a look at. And here, I'll do a screen share of that as well. So go ahead and pop in there and go and add things that make things difficult. And I'll change the formatting down here. There you go. Oh, these are all good. Yeah, narrowing the scope of the project. That's tough, especially with complex ones. there's a phrase, boiling the ocean, when you try to do too much all at once. You can easily boil a little pot of water, but you can't boil the ocean. Knowing when to stop. Oh, that is brilliant. Knowing when to stop. These are so good. I wish all y'all were at all my workshops. These are just terrific. Let's give folks a few more moments to go through these. This is like conceptual popcorn. We'll wait for the ideas to stop popping, and then we'll take a look at what we have. Oh, and Dylan, could you prepend your name with SRP? These are great. All right, let's go ahead and start taking a look at some of these then. Okay, first let's talk about what makes complex projects hard. And this can be, if you're on a team project, or if you're even not on a team project, if it's just complex, what can make it hard? So what do you have? A lot of people working different pieces. Okay, yeah, and that might be team projects, absolutely. There's lots to keep track of. You have ideas early on in the project and you get involved and then you forget what you were working on in the first place. Narrowing down the scope, that's a great one. Making small decisions, that's interesting. Just because there's so many decisions, I suppose. Planning what exactly to do with the project. Yeah, this might almost be like a forest for the trees. You get involved in the small things and it's tough to see what the big picture is and to keep that in mind. Communication, coordination, especially with teams, I think that's true. Keeping up with updating programming languages, libraries. Ooh, that's a good one. Figuring out the code to use. Yeah, misinterpreting instructions when they aren't specific or detailed enough. That's a great one we will come back to. Time management, asking the right questions, lack of knowledge of the programming language. Okay, absolutely. And the fact is, every programming language has many, many different aspects and many, many different libraries. Which one do you need to know to solve a particular problem? And finding appropriate sources of data, identifying inappropriate sources. Nice. Okay. So complex projects are hard for these reasons. What about team projects? Well, having clear goals that people agree on. Yeah, you can, sometimes it's almost like herding cats, right? Everyone's going off in a different direction. Making sure people do what they're supposed to do. Yeah, kind of holding people accountable. And it also sort of the flip side of that, because sometimes it's, I forget what I said I was going to do. This happens all the time. I have a lot going on and I forget what I said I was going to do. And when we come to the next meeting, it's like, well, I didn't actually do it yet because I forgot I was supposed to do it. Sharing your vision ideas with team members, absolutely. Having a place where you can do that. Workload required, yeah. Making sure that you don't sign on for too much or people don't ask too much of you. Time management, that's part of that as well. Different visions. Different visions can be fine, but you got to know that you have different visions and you've got to have a division of responsibility to tackle that. Coordination between members, fantastic. Distance between team members. Now, Zoom has helped, but being virtual means you got to even be better about coordination. Life balance, absolutely. So knowing that you're not taking on too much. Gauging teammates' abilities and what they can contribute. Yep. And people have to know what they're signing on for, right? Knowing when to stop and pursue a different strategy. Gotta love that one. I do love that one. and talking too much about parts of the projects that you're really interested in. That's actually a really good one, and very common for people who are in tech areas such as ours, right? So we need to have sort of boundaries that sort of let us know, okay, this is the appropriate amount of time to talk, and now it's time to move on to something else. So let's see how well these approaches can help us mitigate or to solve each of these problems. So let's start talking about some traditional approaches first. I'm going to give you sort of a little bit of a whirlwind tour of how these problems are approached in business. And then I'm going to talk about how they need to be modified a little bit for analytics and research programs, analytics and research projects and data science projects. And then at the very end, we're going to take score. Quick question for you to start thinking about. Okay, great. All right, so traditional approaches to managing projects. So one very popular approach, and do you all know where the virtual thumbs up is? So virtual thumbs up is under, gosh, what's it called? Reactions. So look on the bottom for reactions. Give me a thumbs up. Thank you, Miranda. Give me a thumbs up if you have ever heard of Agile. So give me a thumbs up.
It sounds familiar, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, and they don't have a sideways thumb, do they? They need one. Yeah.
Yeah.
It gets discussed a lot. This is kind of what it is. Well, it started as a reaction against a revolt, almost a revolt against software projects that started very early on with all these specifications. And then you would go and develop for 6 months or a year, and then you deliver the product, and you would do exactly what the specification said. And the owner would say, what have you done? This bears no resemblance to what I wanted. And you'd say, but it met the requirements. And they say, we're not very good at writing requirements. And this would be your problem. So Agile said, well, you know what? We're going to deliver things ongoing, and we're going to get your feedback ongoing. So what we're going to do is, instead of getting requirements and then working every week, we're going to get together. We're going to emphasize individuals and interactions over just the tools. We're going to be always concentrating on making working software. We're going to have customer collaboration, and we're going to respond to change. So that means, rather than starting with a bunch of rules and then you get to the end and they don't like what you have, they say, you know what? We realized we left out something really important. We need to make a change. So let's talk about it and figure out the best way to do it. That's Agile. So Agile, by the book. And frankly, I think this is kind of funny, because Agile started as sort of, just collaborate. And then it turned into a very kind of structured approach, almost as structured, if not more structured than the requirements approach, but that's all right. 4 important parts of doing Agile and staying close to the project and close to the experts and the owners of the project. One is sprint planning. You work in sprints. It's almost think like a race, a series of sprints. In this case, my team often works in sprints of 1 week. So you plan out what's going to be happening in the next week. Then every day of that, you do a stand-up. It's called Scrum. This is the traditional Agile by the book. Then at the end, you have a retrospective, and you have demos of what you've done. And you have something called an iteration review. What did we get right? What did we get wrong? Did we do everything we said we were going to do? And these are what these parts look like. This is a Kanban board. This is how you do your sprint planning. All right, here's all the stuff we want to do. Here's the stuff that we have in project and in progress, and it has people's names on it. This has been reviewed by people. We've tested it. It's done. It's blocked. That's another one. Hey, I can't work on this because of this issue. And then in traditional Agile, you have a daily stand-up. and they're very serious about it. They mean stand up, like, no, stand up. Because if you're sitting down, you can talk forever. So this is kind of that nice approach of how long do I talk about my favorite thing? Well, you're standing and it's kind of uncomfortable. So eventually you have to sit down. So you're only supposed to answer the question, what did I complete yesterday? What will I work on today? Have I blocked anything? And then retrospective is, that's when you take a look and see where people were, where did the cards end up? Are there any cards left on the board outside of the backlog, still sitting in the working on this sprint, and why? And then iteration review, where you take a look at, they sort of get really in depth about, did you do all the work? And what did that look like? Let me bounce this up against our reality, especially those of us doing data science projects, because it doesn't quite hold up. In reality, in data science and also in analytics projects, it kind of looks like this, where you early on, you have to define the problem, then you do this data exploration, which is a little bit amorphous. It's not separate tasks necessarily. It kind of can be, but data exploration. And then you move to this very different phase where you're doing work on the data science model itself. And so this is cyclical. And one thing I've learned is that the cyclical nature of this part, especially of data science, drives project managers crazy. They hate it because they want to know, by what date will you be done? And the answer is, I don't know the date. You can time box stuff, but you don't know when the model is going to be good enough. And so that's why I love that question about how do you know when it's good enough? We're going to be talking about that more in another workshop. But that has to do with assessment. And then you have deployment. So this gives different kinds of challenges to how we work. And then we have other issues too. We're working often with researchers or with people who are not quite as available as people in industry. So sometimes we sort of have to smush two different things together to get things done. So how do we address all these problems using Agile, but in a way that's appropriate for the kind of work that we do? Well, we mentioned the 4 ceremonies before in Agile by the book. We're going to move this around a little bit. So first of all, we're going to make up 5 activities. One, we're going to do sprint planning, and we're going to just have continuous communication rather than doing a stand-up. We're actually going to be communicating all the time using Git and GitHub, and also using paired and group coding and problem solving. So we're going to be working together. And then at the very end, we're going to do demos. And then we have to do a model and analysis review. So at the end of the sprint, how well is the model working? And that's something we can actually assess. So we want to get an idea of how well the model is working. But we just simplify things a little bit. And just to spell this out, sprint planning is writing and prioritizing issues. We're going to see issues in just one moment. These are going to be using GitHub. We're going to have issues. And we're going to have the stakeholders participate. So social good folks who are here, we're going to have people from Metro Nashville. We're going to have people from Tennessee Alliance for Legal Services. We're going to have people who are involved in the gifted and talented education research participate with this. SRP folks, you'll be able to work directly with your researchers and postdocs. They can even write issues and put them in. We're going to have continue for model and analysis review. We put our work in front of our stakeholders, our researcher, our partners. We're going to move things around just a little bit though, because we only get these stakeholders about 1 meeting a week. We don't get them twice a week. So we're going to do continuous communication, paired group coding, demos, which is where you present your work at the end of the week, limited to 2 or 3 minutes. And then we have model analysis and review and sprint planning all together. So we take a look at what we've done, and then we plan what we're going to do for the next week. And that's kind of what it looks like. So how do we do this? We have all this stuff that we want to do. We want to record what we say they're going to do. We want to know where people are. We want to hold people accountable and hold ourselves accountable. We want to be able to get a view of all the work that's being done all at once. So it turns out GitHub has tools that we can really use to solve these problems. So I think of GitHub as an ecosystem. We're going to see GitHub in just a moment. GitHub has repositories. Repositories are a collection of all the code, a little bit of the data. Data is usually stored someplace else, but all the repositories of all the code, and it versions the code so you never lose what you've worked on. GitHub, another part of the ecosystem is a README. It's just a file in the repository that tells you all about a project. There are issues. Issues are just notes that you make. They're kind of structured notes, but they're notes that you make about ideas that you have that you want to do later, work that needs to be done, problems that need to be fixed. Anything that needs to be done gets written into what's called an issue. And then we have the project view. And the project view is how it all gets brought together. The project view that you're going to see in just a moment, to me, is what ties things together. So all of these tools together work together to make something that seems impossible, where you have team members that can see what they need to do and what's been done. You can share with others what help you need. And together they create something which is much more stable and workable than any of the individual parts that are than they possibly could be independently. All right, what am I actually talking about? Let's go and take a look at a repo, and so you can see what this looks like. Questions? Okay. This is a GitHub repo. So this is the front page of the repo, and this is work that Dr. Bell has been leading with the Vanderbilt University Press. There's a writer and researcher, Dr. Roosevelt Noble. Professor Noble is writing a book. He's done hundreds and hundreds of interviews with students at Vanderbilt, Black students at Vanderbilt from the very beginning, when students of color were first admitted, because it wasn't at the founding of Vanderbilt, all the way up to current day. And they needed to have some pretty sophisticated work done with natural language processing. And so we worked with them to do this. But in order to do that, we need to have a place to put all of our code. So here's all of our code. Here's some documents having to do with the code. This is the README file that I mentioned before, one of the most important parts. So if you wanted to find out about what's going on and what Ivy Archive is, you can go in here and read all about it. What data do you have? What data security do you need? What models are you using to solve? What timelines do we have? What is the structure of what we're using, how we're solving a problem? When do you meet? Where do you meet? When do you do demos? What are the resources you have, and who's involved, and how do you get hold of them? So that's a README. That's a good README. Now, I mentioned a couple of times you want to record things that you want to do, problems that you have, ideas that you want to think about and not forget about in the future, even if you can't work on them right now. These are issues. So issues are structured statements. So you can put tags on these. You can assign these to people. So create demographics bar plot for year of graduation. That work was assigned to Emmanuel Milton. So if we click on that, we can see that it has some more of a description. We see who wrote it. Dr. Bell wrote it. We can see who it was assigned to, and we can see that find out information about it. And this one is not closed yet, which means that it's still still being worked on. You can also put tags on these to say, oh, this one may not be as important. It's an enhancement. Oh my gosh, we need to fix this one. This one's a bug. But these are all ideas, things that may need to be done. You'll notice there's a problem here. Can anybody tell me what order these are in? And I can zoom in a little bit so you can see a little bit better. What order are these in?
Are these in the order they were opened?
Yeah, reverse order, right? So they're numeric by the number of the issue. Okay. Can anyone tell me what the most important thing is for us to do next on this project? It's a trick question. The answer is no, you can't. Not without reading every single one and making a judgment call, right? They're numerical order. It has nothing to do with what's most important. I'm kind of thinking fixing the bug might be important, but we don't know. Most importantly, we don't know what's most important to Professor Noble. Because we may think what's important to be done next, and we can have a conversation with Professor Noble, but between the two of us, he might say, you know what, it's okay. I don't care if that works or not. This is the part that I really want. If you can make this happen, please do this. Dr. Bell, has that happened to you before where you thought that you had something that was really, this is your project, where you thought that this was something really important? It turns out that no, they really needed something else.
That has most certainly happened. We had this whole, thing planned out about what exactly we were going to do. And then this is super important. This in our minds, it was super important. And then during our meeting with the PIs, they were just, they found something else to be more important. And so we pivoted right onto that. So it is really important to have your collaborators there to inform your activities.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think that in this case, in this particular project, that these owners of the project could have written us requirements such that they could have written requirements and then we could have come back 6 months later with the project done?
Could they have written requirements?
Yes, done I'm asking if this could have been done using waterfall, using the old style. They're going to write requirements and we're not going to talk to them again for 6 months. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
What a train wreck that would have been.
Yeah.
Frankly, I've never run across a single project where I think it could have been successfully completed with just requirements. So this kind of an approach of sort of iterating with them is important, but we can't do that with this tool. So what do we have? It turns out we can use projects. We just need to look at them in a different way. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see what this looks like. Remember that Kanban board? This is that Kanban board. But in here, they have all the issues that we had before. So here, I'm going to ask that question again. From just the backlog, what is the most important thing for us to do next? If you're done with all your work for the week and you want to do one thing, you want to pick a card up, pick an issue up and work it, what should you do? And it's okay, just take a guess. What do you think is the most important thing over here? Andrew, what do you think? What would be your best guess about what would be the most important thing to do in the backlog?
Would what's ever on top be most important?
Yes, exactly. So let's double check this because this is no longer numerical order. Yes, we can sort this. That actually turns out to be a really critical piece. So you can sort this together, and this is actually some of what you do during that sprint planning. And also what's called the backlog grooming. Are all the things that are most important to do next here, are they in the right order? Okay, let's go and take a look and see how we did last week. Hey, it looks like in current sprint, we still have a couple of things here. We're at the end of the sprint. Are they done yet? Are they're not even in progress yet? Does somebody else need to do them? You might be busy. That happens. Work-life balance, right? I mean, sometimes it happens. So maybe it needs to be assigned to somebody else. Or if you're working solo on a project, you may look back and you say, I haven't done this one yet. Is it really necessary for me to do? Maybe I can move it back over here to the backlog. Maybe it's not important. Or my gosh, I've forgotten about that. I really need to work on that next. So this board allows you to do everything that you need to do. And what you're going to find in a little bit later on this week is that this works really well with how we do software development and how we do data science. When we close issues using what we call commits, and you're going to find out about those later.
What's a long-term impact?
Automatically. So everything is tied together for you. Excellent. So what questions do you have about this projects view and the Kanban board? All right, I have a question for you, actually. This looks like it's really useful for a team. How could this be useful for a single person working on a complex project? Sam, let me ask you, if you don't mind. How do you think this might, or could this be useful for a single person working on a complex project?
Yeah, I definitely think so. It really allows you to keep track of like all the different aspects of the project you could be working on. Because if you're working on something by yourself, it's almost like you're filling the role of multiple different people, because you have to cover each, separate part of the project. And that can lead, to a lot of jumping all over the place and having all these issues and stuff where you can really keep track of where you are in each of those processes, I think can be super helpful.
Excellent. Okay, great. That is very good to hear. All right, other questions? Okay, let me pop back over and talk about what makes a great repository, and then we'll take a look at this and see what's great about it and maybe what's could possibly be improved, because every repository could be improved. Let's go and take a look and see what makes a great repository. Hallmarks of a great repository. And the funny thing is, a great repository probably means a great project and probably means a great team. Strong correlation between the two. And I'm not willing to say where causality flows. I have a feeling causality flows both ways. So you have an informative README. A new person can come into the project and understand what's going on generally, get the background by reading that README, plus they know who to reach out to join the project. Well-written issues. So we keep on talking about these issues as sort of being cards. The idea is you ought to be able to pick up one of these, read it, see what's involved, and actually work it. So, I mean, you'd have to have some expertise in that particular area, but you ought to be able to do that without having to reach out to the person. So if Chet writes an issue for me, I ought to be able to read what he wrote, and I don't have to call him and say, okay, what are you talking about here? Let's spend half an hour talking about this. No, because it's detailed there, so I can take it and work it. Interpretable commit messages. We're going to get into this a little bit more, but this has to do with the programming side. Great project board. So a great project board, we're going to talk about what makes a great project board in just a moment. Informative README, that means it has the overview, it has the statement of the problem, it has the approach, timeline, deliverables, resources, stakeholders, contact information, license. License tells other people if they can use your stuff or not, and how they can use it. So two really bad things can happen if you don't have a license. One, people use your stuff, and two, people don't use your stuff. So one, people use your stuff inappropriately. They take it and they fold it into a commercial project and you didn't want them to. Or if they take it and they don't give you, they don't cite you. 2, people don't use it at all. So you write this cool code, you want people to start using it, but they don't use it because there's no license, so they don't know if they can. So the right license for the right project. This makes a good README. And finally, how to contribute, especially if it's open source. You want people to join, you better leave the door open for them with a welcome mat. Okay, well-written issue. So it's a good description. And the way that you can tell if it's good description, could I work this problem? Or could someone work this problem if they don't know everything I know? It includes context. Sometimes this can even be a snapshot, literally, of a whiteboard. The cool thing about issues is you can drag and drop like pictures in there and drawings and whatever you need to. Whatever is required to give people a good sense of what's going on. Worked on a project about 2 years ago that had very complex dashboard requirements. And they were complex because it was in the minds of the people, but they couldn't really describe what it was. And so I asked the person to draw what they wanted. And they said, I cannot draw. I cannot draw to save my life. And I said, it does not matter. And so they came up with something, that kind of looked like, like this. And by God, they were right. They were like, they couldn't draw, like there was nothing that was square. It looked like that. I referred to this and the team referred to their outline more than any other documentation, even though it looked ugly and it was not, it had in their mind where they thought things should be, what the interaction should look like. So context, putting information in and also putting information so you don't forget. Give me a thumbs up if you've ever written down an idea, sketched it out, and then lost the piece of paper and then could not recall what it was and the approach that you had in mind. Give me a thumbs up if that's ever happened to you. It's painful, isn't it? It's just not fun. This will help you avoid that. Hey, Katie, would you mind sharing what yours? Oh, I you just took a bite, and of course I call on you. Never mind. Chayton, would you mind sharing your example, just brief example of what you lost?
Yeah, definitely this was more for a class and just work that I was planning on doing for a project that I had. I forget which class it was, but it was just so annoying because I spent so much time accurately planning out how I was going to get stuff done and then just lost it. So it's a good tool. Excellent.
Thank you so much. And I'll call on you again, Katie. I'm sorry that I called you right in the middle. Yeah, so, and it's so difficult to get back, and sometimes you never can. The cool thing about issues is it is there forever. You'll always be able to go back to it, and it's in the right place next to the right stuff. It's right next to the code that you're creating, the analysis that you've been doing. It's all right there. You can pick it up later and start it again. The other thing which I have found with complex projects is whenever you want to leave them and then come back to them, that spin up time where you can put your head back into what you were doing to start the work again can be expensive. On the short end, 15 minutes, but on the high end, an hour to remember what you were doing and how you were doing it so you could just begin project work on that again. Let me ask you this. When you're for those of you who've worked in an office environment, how often can you go for a full hour without being interrupted when you're in the office? How frequently does that happen? I'm trying to think of ever, maybe once or twice a day ever, do I get to go a full hour? Which means if I have a sufficiently complex project, I can never get started on it. If I have a repo, then I can put myself in the mindset and narrow that down to 5 minutes. Oh, this is exactly what I was doing before. Now you have a chance of making some progress. I think of it as a former cognitive psychologist. I think of this as reducing cognitive load, and it makes a big difference. All right. You can assign these issues to someone, and it's recorded who is supposed to do what. It's associated with a project, and it's closed with the committee. These are all well-written issues. These are good issues. They're assigned to someone, well described, have the context. I'm going to skip over commit messages for right now. What makes a good project board? Let me ask you all, what do you think makes a good project board? Any sort of ideas or guesses of what might make a good project board? Dennis, what are your thoughts? What do you think makes a good project board?
Well, I just put frequently updated so people are always knowing what to do and what to prioritize and what's done.
Yes, absolutely. Janet, I like yours as well. Balanced distribution of effort. Yeah, absolutely. One that everyone contributes to, that's right. Absolutely. Okay, all of those are great. Yes, it's well tended. It is reviewed weekly or bi-weekly, depending on how long your sprints are. It has a well thought out backlog. This column to the far left, it's in order. And so you always know what you want to work on next, what's most important to work on next. It's updated and automated with commits closing issues. That means when you're doing programming, you can reference the issues and it will move the cards over for you automatically. It's reviewed at the end of the sprint. Where are the cards? How does it look? Contributors are held accountable, and it's also easy for you yourself to see what you're doing. The stakeholders have eyes on this on a regular basis. Everyone sees, everyone understands where it is, and if stuff isn't getting done, it's for a reason. So talk it out, figure out why. Let's go back and let's take a look at our project board for Ivy Archive and see if there's anything we might want to improve on that and sort of see how it looks and also get a better sense of the functionality. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out. Zoom out. There we go. And I want to see all the things that Emmanuel was working on. So this is Emmanuel's little icon right here. If I click on his icon, it filters out everything except for what Emmanuel was on. This is a really super fast way to see how much work an individual person has. And then you can take it off as well. So you can immediately see what's left and what needs to happen. Turns out this project is actually pretty much done. We're working on a few additional issues here. You'll notice that most of the things here are enhancements. Nothing has been reviewed, it's all been reviewed. And then you have all that is done. This is the whole history of what happened over this past semester for this project. Who did it, when, and you can actually click on any one of those things and figure out the code that they wrote to solve that particular problem. It's all tied together. Let's go and choose just one issue at random. I'm going to show the full issue here, and I'm going to zoom back in a little bit. Strip out leading and trailing white space from pandas data frame after conversion from text list. Okay, so here you all answered me. Does this describe what the issue is? Does it give you context? Give me a thumbs up if this gives you context. Okay, yeah, I think so. Do we know who this is assigned to? Yeah, Emmanuel. Okay, thumbs up if you know whether this is like an enhancement or something to think about later, or if it's a bug. Do we know kind of what problem it is? Yeah, right, big red icon there for bug. So, and this got closed. Let's see if this got closed with a commit. So yeah, so Shara, you moved this here. Oh, it had a pull. Oh yeah, it had a pull request associated with it. And yes, and it got closed with the merge. So it was automated. So it got, and we'll talk about merge and all that tomorrow or day after tomorrow. But yeah, it got updated automatically. I'm thinking this was a good one. Okay. and this is something you can't tell from the board, but Dr. Bell, was this board tended weekly? Did you look at this board weekly?
Yep, so we looked at it every week that we met together.
Okay. Did the stakeholders review this? Did they have eyes on and look at this?
Yes, they did. Every week they looked at what we were doing, they moved things across, and they created issues themselves as well.
Fantastic. And do you think that contributors were held accountable?
Yes, I definitely think so. I think being able to see, you know, what you were assigned and what you actually did all in one place, very helpful.
Excellent.
A quick question for you, Jesse, right quick. So
Yes.
when you clicked on the issue, how did you know who it was assigned to?
Ah, okay, great.
70 or yeah, one of these. How did you know?
So you'll notice these little icons right here. Sometimes they have pictures and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're just the generated ones. But then it gives you assigned to, and that person's name is not the person's name, but it is their GitHub username. And if you click on that, then it filters them out. And if you click on the name of the issue, it has assignees down here and the labels. So this is a nice quick view where you can edit just a little bit. And then I know that you can go to issue for full details, and then you can look at everything. And there's some things here that you can't do in that little view. Like we haven't talked about milestones, but that's one of the things. Did I answer the question well enough?
Thank you so much.
Okay, good. Great. Other questions about the project board or about issues? Okay. Tomorrow, you're going to have the opportunity to create your own GitHub project on our way to practicing with Git and GitHub. I'd like to take a little bit of time now to actually go through our checklist and to see how well we did with the pain points. All right. So I'm going to ask you now, and give me, if you wouldn't mind, go and give me a vote in one of two ways. One, on the reactions. Let's see, on the reactions, you can give me a thumbs. No, let's see. Oh, right below the reactions, you can vote yes or no. So yes is the green check, no is the red cross. Okay, you see where that is under reactions? Okay. Go ahead and vote. Did we address the issue of a lot of people working on different pieces and bridging together? Does this solve or mitigate that problem? So thumbs up, or, so I'm sorry, no, not thumbs up. Green yes, red no. Oh, we're overwhelming. We're getting credit for that one. Yes. Okay. Lots of tasks to keep track of. Green check or red check? Looks like we're happy with this one as well. Helps us with this. All right. Okay. Now this one's a trickier one. Narrowing the scope of the project. Do these tools narrow the scope of the project? And it's okay to say no. It's not going to hurt my feelings. So I have 2 no's. What the rest do you think? A few yeses. Mostly no's. Yeah. By writing the README, you might be able to sort of force yourself down a little bit, but in and of itself, it wouldn't. It's a tool that you could use for that. So, doesn't itself narrow the scope of the project, right? How about in making small decisions? Who wrote Making Small Decisions? Do you remember who wrote it? Could someone volunteer and tell us a little bit more about what you meant by making small decisions?
I think I wrote that, and I was just thinking, like, especially when you're working solo, getting bogged down into little details.
So do you think this helps you keep from getting bogged down?
I think if you're able to set it up in a way where there are other contributors, that might, because they might be able to have some advice on the different tasks you're putting up.
Okay. So this one's, boy, this one's half and half, isn't it? So maybe if you do prioritize your work, maybe that'll help you say, well, actually this one's more important than the other. But again, it's just a tool, it doesn't solve it in and of itself. So this is yes and no. Okay. Planning what exactly to do with the project. Okay. What part of what we talked about might help you figure out what to do with the project, do you think?
Assigning the issues.
Yeah. Mafe, I think you're right, assigning the issues. Is there another part that might help you sort of think through what to do for the project?
In general, like the task prioritization.
Yep, task prioritization. I like that one. Absolutely. Having a clear README. Sam, yeah, exactly. I'm thinking that too. I'm thinking if you write a good README, then you put it in context, and then that'll have to help you narrow down a little bit. I'm thinking we got mostly yes votes on this one. So we do that. Sort of all of it works together. Keeping communication clear. Quick yes or no for that. Yep, I'm going to give us credit for this one. Coordination. Yes, we're getting coordination. Turns out this is actually a pretty useful kind of a tool. And this is just for complex projects. It doesn't have to be with team projects. Keeping up with updating programming language libraries. I'll clear out all the feedback. Yes or no, this helps you with that. Yeah, no. You can write an issue. You can say, hey, look at this new package which has come out. Look at the new update, see if it breaks what we did before, but you still have to do that yourself. Having unclear directions, does this help with that? Yeah, it'll make it clear that you have unclear directions pretty quickly. It doesn't give you clear ones, but it says that you're not on the right path. Okay, figuring out the code to use. Yeah, this might be solved with more the Agile approach with the paired programming, but it's not in the GitHub itself. It's more in the paired programming. So I'm going to say no on this, but the overall data science Agile does have a way of doing it. Misinterpreting instructions when they aren't clear or detailed enough. What do you all think? Does this help you with that? Yeah, so it may not solve it directly, but if you have a project assistant working with you on this, they're going to pull up that card, they're going to pull up that issue, and they're going to contact that person and say, this issue that you wrote consists of a single word. Could you put a verb in here? Can you put some instructions, draw a picture? Remember, the goal of this is that the person ought to be able to pick up the card and work on it. Okay, so we're going to get that one. Time management. Does this help with time management of the team or the individual or just you? Yes, hearing a lot of yeses here. Asking the right questions. Who brought this one up? Who wrote asking the right questions? You remember?
That was me. I was just thinking in terms of just figuring out what it kind of related to, like completing or what the major goals of the project might be, and just figure out what you actually want to achieve with the project. Now to get
Excellent.
there.
Does this help you with that? Do you think that this sort of structure helps you with that?
Yeah, I think so. Because you can organize your thoughts and basically your progress in such a clear way, it should help towards reaching those goals and understanding what questions you need to ask and answer to finish the project.
So this will help because you can sort of see the entire thing at once. So maybe between the README and the project overview, but it won't solve it for you. But if you ask yourself the question, if we accomplish all this, will we be happy and will we be done? That might. Lack of knowledge of programming language, I'm going to say no here, but at least you'll know which ones you need to know. Finding appropriate sources of data. What do you think? Can it be useful for that? What was one of the sections that was necessary for a good README? There was a section which said sources of data. So it won't help you find them first, right? Exactly, Shalini. It won't help you find them in the first place, but when someone finds them, you should be able to find it after that. All right, what makes team projects hard? Having clear goals that people agree on. Yes, this helps you with it. Yes, we're getting pretty strong yeses. Okay. All right, now here's the next one. Making sure people do what they're supposed to do. Oh yeah. Remember how you can click on it? Shows you everything you're supposed to do. Properly sharing your vision and ideas with team members. Yeah, it gives you a way to communicate that, doesn't it? All right. The workload required. And this probably means there's a lot of work to be done. This doesn't reduce the amount of work, but does it help you plan out your work? Yes, okay. All right, I'm gonna give us, since we're almost out of time, I'm gonna give ourselves time management, communication, different visions. It'll highlight when you have different visions, won't solve it for you. Coordination, I'm gonna give it to us. Distance between team members, this won't solve that, but it should make it easier. I'm hoping this makes a difference with life balance. I am taking Thursday and Friday off, therefore I cannot do these cards. It won't gauge teammates' abilities, but will help them decide what they should and should not do. It won't necessarily let you know when you need to stop and pursue a different strategy. How about talking too much about projects, parts of the project you're really interested in? Or is there anything about sort of the entire Agile that helps you do that? Yeah, right. Remember, like in demos, you have 2 minutes, so you get limited. All right. So I'm going to let you go through and think about the rest for yourself. We're at the end of our time. I'd like to open this up again for questions that you have. Congratulations, we hit almost all of those points in this very short period of time. So these are the tools and approaches that you need. One final note though, in order to get access to the project, that's a premium feature of GitHub. So you have to make that project repo within an organization that has more elevated privileges. We have those. You're welcome to create those repositories within our organization, or I can help you all get set up. For example, Frist, Dave, and Adrian, I can help you get those set up for you all as well. It's free, but you have to set it up first. So questions? All right, and yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm on the GitHub site right now, trying to figure out, so which one are we gonna be like downloading, like the free one?
Yeah.
Free plan?
Yeah, and GitHub, and tomorrow we're gonna be talking about the difference between Git and GitHub. And but it's all free and open source. But yeah, absolutely. All right. Thank you all very much. Congratulations. It was a pleasure working with you all. Looking forward to seeing many of you tomorrow. See you tomorrow.